Hi, this is Jack Goggin with Stockworth Realty, and you're watching Jack's List, a show dedicated to giving the average consumer the insider information by bringing in industry experts in all things related to real estate. And today I am joined by a great friend of mine and really well-known landscaper in town, Garrett Richardson with Landscape Resources. Welcome, Garrett.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
Appreciate it. So to start off, do you mind telling the audience a little bit about Landscape Resources, history, what you guys do today?
Sure. So Landscape Resources was founded 21 years ago by my father. It's a legacy business, if you say. He's been in the industry for 40 years. He's owned many companies, mostly commercial landscaping in the beginning. Decided to transfer over to the higher end residential services side, and that's where Landscape Resources came from.
That's awesome. How large is the company now? How many trucks? How many employees?
So right now we have in total about 14 or so trucks. We have about 40-ish employees out in the field every day.
God,
so
that's nuts. And as far as your average consumer, is it private real estate, residential real estate owners, commercial, new construction? What's your business makeup?
Yeah, so we have several divisions in the company. We have a new install and renovation division, new enhancements, new planting, stuff like that. We have an irrigation division, pest control and fertilization division, low voltage lighting division, and a maintenance division.
Got it. And to give the audience a little bit of context here, Garrett's one of my best friends. I've been in his wedding. He's been in mine. We are racing drivers, both of us. Sometimes we're competing against each other on the... Actually, I say we're competing. Normally, it's I watch you just leave me in the dust. And we also race on endurance racing teams together. So we go way back. We have these conversations frequently. And another one of those examples, we're talking to someone who's in the real estate related industry where I go, we really got to shoot a film on this. So what you'll notice, and I'm going to give context to it through the door, is you're going to hear us probably reference racing really often. And we were talking a little bit about this before. And I think the reason that we tend to relate racing to our professional and our personal life is it is such an intense, high stakes and high pressure atmosphere that if your mottos or mentalities work really, really good when you're on track, they seem to work really good in personal, professional life. Where what are some of the correlations that you draw in how you run the landscaping business to how you handle yourself on the track?
So I learned this very early on when I was beginning racing. My first racing license competition, I ran headfirst into a wall.
Oh, was that Daytona?
Daytona.
Yeah.
Headfirst into a wall. I mean, right out the get-go. Brakes locked up, tire went bad, and just right into it. So I came back into the pits, and my dad knows me well enough. I pull in, and he just sees my face go white. And he goes, "Garrett, what have I always taught you?" And I go, "Mental toughness." And that is what I take into the office every day. Yeah. And I feel like you and I are very well informed with that as far as, we have to bring mental toughness to our prospective, clients, to, jobs that we do every single day. And that to me is the biggest correlation that I take from racing into my professional and personal life.
Yeah. And to kind of paint the picture for someone who may have never been on the track or really doesn't follow racing, I'll try to give you kind of a view into the racing world. So if we've all been there where you're driving down the road and all of a sudden the car in front of you jacks their brakes and you go, "Holy crap, I think I'm going to hit that guy." And you stand on those brakes and hopefully you don't hit him, but you try to hit the brakes as hard as you possibly can.
Right.
That car stops as fast as it can. In our world, you do that every time you're entering a corner. You are putting all of your weight on your brakes, standing it up on the nose, After that, then you are ripping into a corner, and we're not talking hitting the brakes at 30 miles an hour.
No.
We're talking 130 miles an hour, and then having to turn the car and keep as much speed as you possibly can. When you're in the corner, what do our cars do? A little over a G, maybe?
Oh, yeah.
1.3 or something.
Probably.
So pulling a little over a G is the equivalent force that the earth puts on us to keep us on the ground, but it's sideways.
Yep.
That's how much sidewards pressure you have on that. And on top of that, if we're touching the accelerator, except when you're just feathering out of a corner so you don't break the back end loose, it's always floored.
Absolutely.
So you're all brakes, all gas, as hard as the car will turn. And in the endurance races, we'll do that for 2 hours straight. On top of that, it's not just you on the track.
I was going to say that.
Yeah, in the Champ Car Racing Series, where Garrett and I compete many times on the same team, you're driving for 2 hours, there will be 100 other cars doing the exact same thing. And, you know, we hear all the time, I-4 is crazy, and all these crazy drivers. On the racetrack, the amount of distance you have to cars on I-4, in our world, that's, I have nothing but room, nobody's near me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and on top of that, it's exhausting, it's hot, bad things can happen within a millisecond. You can just lose your concentration at these speeds, and things can, well, you can end up in the wall really,
or a tire
really
goes
quick.
out and you go into a wall, you know, extremely quickly.
So just to give a little bit of context of why that is such an intense world and an intense experience, high stakes, that's why I go, dude, if it works in racing, it works in real estate, and it works for
Absolutely.
being at home. Where one of the other phrases that I always equate with my business is, in racing with us, we talk about checklists and routines and all of the preparation beforehand. Where the saying I often use is, races are never won until the checkered flag drops, but races are often lost well before the green flag goes.
Absolutely.
Where
that's, I mean, I can speak to that wholeheartedly,
Yeah.
you know, in past
Logistically,
experience. Yeah.
Where is that kind of how, because managing 14 trucks, you know, dozens of people, what kind of systems do you have to keep track of everyone? Because it's got to be nuts.
Yeah. So, you know, my dad's a big, you know, it has taught me a lot on systems and creating a system for anything and everything. And he wants to get my job so boring, so mundane on a day-to-day basis because I have the personnel in place, I have the systems in place to take care of it for me. So I'm not coming into the office going, oh man, I got this on my plate and this to do and all that, when that should already be planned out well in advance. And don't get me wrong, it's taken me a little while to get there, but you know, that's a big learning curve from coming into college, you know, learning all of this stuff, you know, just like you know, you started young in the real estate world, you know, big learning curve, but
Big learning curve.
yeah. And I mean, now you're on top of your game, you know, you've been in the industry long enough, you know, the trends, you know, everything going on. So it makes it a lot more fun in that regard as well. And for me, knowing at the end of the day, the company's run efficiently because of me, is hugely rewarding.
Yeah. And so necessary, where if I know in my world, if the systems aren't in play, all the most important things drop really quick. Actually, it's been a common trend on this show is how important, whether you're hiring the real estate agent or the landscaper or something, one of the common trends has been make sure it's someone who has a structure in place, or else, you know, they may be good at the thing you're technically hiring for them, but they can't execute if they don't have those systems. Where pivoting a little bit, and it's a conversation you and I have all the time, is the importance of landscaping in real estate. Now, why do you think, I know a lot of builders in town, they hire you guys and they spend quite a bit to put fresh landscaping and new construction. Why do you think that is, in your opinion?
So through my experience in the past and, stories that my dad told me, these builders are building multi-million dollar homes. Their clientele is a clientele that wants, to be, wowed not just inside the home, but when they pull up at the end of the day or they have a party or an event or something like that, they want a space that almost is like a resort.
Yeah.
At all times of the year.
It's certainly in Florida. I
Correct.
mean, that paradise oasis style
Absolutely.
is so big here.
Yeah, and that's where we come in.
Yeah. And I may have told you this story. Did I tell you about the story of the house that I sold that completely burned down? Only the structure was left, and I was able to sell it for more than the other homes in the neighborhood.
I don't.
Okay, so
yeah, please tell me.
So this is a funny one where I can't give away all of my trade secrets, but I'll tell you one of the things that I think certainly allowed me to do that. So long story short, great family friend of ours. 6 months prior, ended up, they reached out to me and said they were looking to sell their property. And I went, excellent. At the time, we established that the home was roughly fair market around $400,000. A couple months later, I get a call from them and, can tell that the tone has shifted here. And this is a real estate or just a homeowner tip. They had an extension cord plugged in to an outlet in their garage, and that extension cord wasn't plugged into anything else. If you don't know, that is a really common way that fires start. And after I heard that, you never see a loose extension cord in my house, where it started a fire in the middle of the night. Luckily, they were able to get out. Their dog was able to get out. They were fine. But with a 1950s block house, it trapped all the flames, all the heat in there, absolutely scorched the inside where everything's just black. No ceiling left, and even broke through a little bit of the roof. And we went through the process figuring out, do we sell the house as is, assuming we're going to take a huge hit on it? Do we try to claim insurance and rebuild? What do the numbers look like that relative to the amount of work? Maybe do totally new construction. And ultimately, we determined that for them, let's try to sell the property. So had an appraiser come in. They valued essentially what is just the land left at like $350,000. This home just so happened to have beautiful landscape, which I don't know the term for it, but on pathways, when you have, 2 by 5 foot concrete separated path, what do you call that?
It's
style?
just paver. It's just
paver.
Yeah. It's not a style. It's just so much. You got to get the pavers in the right way. It's got to be all geometrically, sound and all that.
So they had that walkway. Their concrete was fresh. They had this beautiful landscaping, and the backyard was absolutely an oasis. And that was the thing that I basically told my photographer, we can take a couple shots of the interior, but there's really nothing to show. You need to be like a nature photographer on this house. We need to make this yard look so unbelievable and big and perfect. And the reason we did that is the saying I always use is the first showing always happens online, where it's before anyone walks into the house, they find it online. And by a rule in the MLS, you have to have a front exterior shot, or if it's a lakefront house, you can have a rear facing shot.
Okay.
But it always has to be exterior. And if they don't, breaking the rules, they get a compliance notice. So we revolved all the marketing around the lot, and the thing that attracted people to the property happened to be the landscaping. Long story short, we were able, the home got appraised for $350,000. We were able to sell that home for $435,000 within about a month. Wow. 2 weeks later, a perfectly functioning home on the exact same lot sold for $15,000 less than we did. And and grand, we did a lot on our side and trade secrets, finding the right buyer. But if it weren't for the landscaping, that just wouldn't have happened. If it was an ugly exterior, we pretty confidently, I can say we would not have been able to do that.
Right.
And ever since then, I've knew it at the time, and even more so, just how critical landscaping is with home sales. Now, talking about this is a question I bring up all the time, and it's a tough one, which is what is the average cost to landscape a home? And we'll set parameters. Let's say, it's a 2,000 square foot house,
Right.
quarter acre. They're being budget conscious, but they want a lot of value to make their front and backyard beautiful. Emphasis on the front. How much does that run?
So, like you were saying, there's so many factors that weigh into that.
Yep.
But, generally speaking, you could do a fairly nice enhancement job for about, 10, 15, up to 25,000.
Got it.
And that's, no irrigation install. That's renovating irrigation, because when you're putting different plant material in, and this is what we deal with a lot when we go to do these renovations, they've got an existing irrigation system in it, but it's set up for different plant material. So
when you say plant material, what do you mean by that?
So a lot of systems are run based on gallons per minute.
Okay.
From a backflow. Are they on a shallow well like my home is?
Yep.
Are they running off a lake pump, stuff like that? So depending on the horsepower of the pump, depending on the flow rates of all the heads and all that, the zones have to be set up specifically for different plant material. And that plant material normally, when the irrigation is set up, is for the new installation of that plant material.
Got it.
Now, styles change. People's personality change, their wants and needs change on the landscaping. So the irrigation has to kind of evolve around that. And that's something that we deal with every single day, is modifying irrigation when we go to do new plantings, because all of our plant material, if we're maintaining a property, come with a 1-year warranty on it, and that's pretty industry standard. If you're maintaining the property, if you have eyes and you have control on the property.
Yep.
But it comes with a 1-year warranty. So we have to, have insurance on our side, and that's the irrigation. So, that being said, that figure includes, renovating irrigation heads, moving some lines, stuff like that.
Tuning it.
Yeah, exactly. And so that would be my general estimate of, a normal homeowner. Now, when you say those numbers, for the average person, that's quite a bit of money.
That's a big
Even to
chunk.
me, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And like we were talking about last night, you can't go out and finance this stuff. It's cash based.
No,
So
and that's with a lot of real estate when I'm working with buyers, there's always the option, go in and find something that has the good bones, but know that if you want to change the floors, if the AC needs to be replaced or the roof, just know, figure out your financing and how much you want to put down based on what you think you're going to spend the next year. And one of the things that, even with our conversation yesterday, where I went, this is something I'm going to start telling my clients to work into the budget, is landscaping, because it is all cash,
Absolutely.
unless it's already existent.
yeah, and that's something that I think deters a lot of people. Generally speaking, is how much upfront money they have to put into a landscape to beautify their home.
Yeah.
And when you get into the higher end market, they don't really care all that much.
Yep.
But for the average homeowner, that's quite a bit of money.
Totally.
So I completely get it.
And again, we were talking a little bit about it yesterday, and this is something I've known and ran with for a while, is it's quite a bit of money from a real estate standpoint to somebody who's looking to sell. I almost always advise them to have the classic 2 pots on either side of the front door with fresh, bright flowers, and make sure that the hedges are dialed. And, if there's one hedge that's dead in your row, go ahead and replace that, because it's the first thing that somebody sees when they walk through the door. And in Florida, with what's our average temp? 73 degrees. we spend a lot of time in the backyard. So
Absolutely.
make sure, the grass isn't patchy, and the thing that often happens that normally I'm not in the picture early enough. Normally they say I'm looking to sell within the next month or two, and that only gives you so much time to
Sure.
get the landscape ready. And what we were talking about yesterday is what's funny is someone who's looking to sell in a month or two will spend the same amount of money to make their landscaping beautiful, but it won't be as mature yet. And you just spent all that money and you didn't have
Correct.
time to experience it. Where from my advice to basically anyone who's thinking that they will sell in the next, 3 to 5 years, start on the landscaping now, give it time to start to mature, and then you actually get to take advantage of it
Oh,
and actually get to
absolutely.
enjoy it. Because I know that unless you go, well, it depends on the market, the price point, but even your average house, if you put, even if it's 5,000
Sure.
into the front,
Sure.
you're going to get that 5 back. Your home is going to sell sooner. It's going to get more eyes online, which is one of the most important parts, just because the front landscaping
Yeah,
is
and
good.
you made a great point, and I feel I agree with you when you went in and said, the most cost-effective way, and I agree with this statement from you is, when you walk up to a front door, sometimes plants die. I mean, they're a living, breathing, thing.
Yep.
And you'll have a pocket in there of
Yep.
dead plant material.
Yep.
Go ahead and replace it. It's 1, 2, 3, 4 plants.
Yep. Fresh
that
mulch.
changes a lot of stuff. Fresh
Totally.
mulch, making sure the grass is cut to the right height. All of that stuff
Edging,
adds a
which
lot.
I'm lazy on.
Edging is a big deal, and that's one of those things. Like, so in my yard, and a lot of our clients' yards, we have a product. It's aluminum edging. Basically, it's aluminum piece of metal barrier that goes
Yeah.
between our bed line and our sod line.
Gotcha.
That way, there's no edging. So you take the element of human error out of it with a guy with a edger going along.
Yeah.
If he trips or he steps on it and his line's wobbly,
Yeah.
well, you're kind of screwed until the grass grows back in.
Is that how? Because I've seen it. Well, Winter Park, born and raised guys. Winter Park freaking loves landscaping.
do.
Absolutely obsessed with plants in Winter Park. And is that why I just thought their maintenance must have been insane. Is that how people keep such a crisp line between where the lawn ends and that bed starts without having any visible barrier?
Yeah, so it definitely helps. There's two different sides to that. There are companies out there that basically, I mean, they're that good at what they do, and they have that much time on the job to spend perfecting all of those lines.
Yep.
But a lot of times, you have that almost invisible layer in between to really get those lines exactly where you want them and keep them there.
Yeah.
Now, with the aluminum edging, the big thing is that I train our guys on is eventually the sod's going to grow over the top of it. It's going to start, encroaching on the plant bed itself. And because sod is an invasive thing, as you know, it'll grow anywhere and everywhere.
Unless you have chickens in your backyard.
Well, yeah, that might deter that a little bit.
Yeah, my sod struggles.
But even mine, you've got you have stakes that you drive through the back side of the aluminum edging to keep it in place. The sod will find those little cracks in where the stake is and grow in between it.
Oh, no kidding.
So they have to take a string trimmer, which we do, and run it between the aluminum edging and the sod side to just create that crisp edge every once in a while, and make it looking fresh.
Got it. And I know you guys and we'll have to include some photos of the landscaping that you guys do, because you guys do some crazy high dollar stuff. Where how much in the high end, how much are you seeing people spending just on landscaping and, Winter Park and Windermere?
Yeah, so we just completed, I'd say probably $500,000 job in landscaping, and I've seen it go up to $1.5 million
No kidding.
in landscaping. Absolutely. I mean, you get these properties in Winter Park that are a couple acres.
Yeah.
They want every single area to be perfect all the time. They want it filled in immediately. They don't want that growing pain period that you
Yep.
get when you install, plant material at a correct, spacing.
Yep.
They want it filled in right away. And, you get the quantity of plants that go up. You get the size of the plants that go up.
Yep.
And that
How
all means more
mature
money.
they are. Yeah. And how much of a difference does the maturity of a plant impact the cost? Because, assuming small hibiscus you see at Home Depot versus something that's, like what I bought from you, 3 to 4 feet high, takes years to get to that point. How much of a difference does maturity make? Does it double, triple?
Yeah. I mean, per gallon size. So we start with 1 gallon. The typical sizes that you find from a nursery are 1, 3, 7, 15, 30, 45 and up. Then you get into the 65, the 100 gallon, then you get into the trees basically from there. So from a 3 to a 7, it doubles, it basically doubles, triples, quadruples,
with
stuff
every
like
bump
that.
up.
Oh, absolutely. And it depends on the plant material itself. There are some plants that are very slow growing, and that when you think about the cost incurred from the nursery, they have to keep it on site longer. They have to fertilize it more. They have to water it more. They have to care for it longer. All that means more money.
Yeah. And the one thing that I thought about just preparing for this show, I was really trying to wrap my head around knowing how important the landscaping world is, how much people do spend and then later see returns on it. And I was just wrapping my head around the industry, and really what I came to the conclusion was that it's almost solely an aesthetic based industry. For sometimes you see landscaping used for, practical reasons, but when we're talking about in Central Florida, pretty much every dollar is going to beauty on it. And the fact that you guys work at the level that you do, almost like interior design for your exterior, I really started looking at you guys like almost artists and designers of sorts, where what are some of the things that you guys do that make your yards as beautiful as they are versus, if you give me all the plants and materials and say, hey, go do this house, it's going to be a really different product. How do you guys, what are the things you do that make your home so beautiful?
So number one, in the high-end space, we only procure plant material that is grade number 1.
Got it.
Or Florida Fancy plant material, which is basically the same thing. It's the highest grade, it's the thickest plant material, it's the best looking plant material, and it's the healthiest plant material you can buy.
And why are those high grades important? Is it for the immediate install or for
for the duration of the life cycle of the plant? You got plant material, you have nurseries that maybe cut corners a little bit or don't fertilize enough in the early stages, and that could lead to fungus or anything like that down the road on the plant, or it just doesn't look as good.
Got it.
There's a big difference. Like you go to say a commercial job, right, and they need to meet code, and they throw plant material in there just to meet code.
Yeah. And
then you look at most of the properties in Winter Park, and you see that difference.
I never actually thought about that. It never really occurred to me how much of a different grade there is. And you're right. When you drive through Winter Park, it may be the same plant. And I know the hibiscus that I bought from you guys, they're crushing it. They're so healthy. The one that I bought from Home Depot wasn't as quick to grow. It's not the same product. What's the difference between like a Florida Fancy and something you would just pick up at like a Home Depot or a Lowe's?
Yeah, so we've worked and established, relationships with some of the best suppliers in Florida, Georgia, and beyond to get plant material that we need on a consistent basis for our jobs. There's also, taking a little sidetrack off that, per LA landscape architect guidelines, city guidelines, and all that, you have to meet certain requirements.
Gotcha.
So we're bidding this job, and they have, you need to have 6 feet of CT, or I mean not CT, of caliper in your trees. Now, each tree, you could have a 6-inch basically trunk on it. You need to add all those up till you get to 6 feet, basically, on the whole job. So you have to have these specifications going in, and that's a big part of what separates, high-end companies from, normal, companies like that is, you meet or exceed what the LA specs or the homeowner specs or something like that. And that's all in creating these relationships with these nurseries, because to be honest, it's a good old boy network in the nursery world. Yep. And, if they don't like you, they're not doing business with you.
Oh, no kidding.
No.
Gotcha.
No.
Yeah, don't tick them off too often. Don't yell
I mean,
at
we
them.
have a guy that out in Brooksville, he sells majority of his trees to Disney and all that. And we just got into it with him and as friends with him a long time ago. And he actually delivered all the trees to my house. And I have so many neighbors coming up, where did you get those trees? Where did you get those trees? And I'm like,
I know a very special guy.
I know a guy that does me a lot of favors, and I'm lucky to be in his circle. And if he doesn't like you, he could care less.
Yeah. God, that's so crazy. But certainly if you're working for Disney, you have the ability to go, I don't want to work with you.
Absolutely.
And as far as almost thinking of layout, I know yesterday we were talking about focal points and, where this art form of when you walk through your front door and you look through your back, sliding glass doors, here's where you want to add focal points, where what does that look like on your side for clients?
So when creating or designing a landscape plan, a lot of the newer homes are an open concept. So you immediately, when you walk through the front door, you can see into your backyard. Well, the first thing that your eye goes to is those accent points in your landscaping. So you draw the eye to certain areas in your yard using certain types of plant material, whether it be trees or specimen, areas that you can find stuff to put in. You use that in pockets, basically. You don't want the whole yard to be overbearing. You want it to be aesthetically pleasing, but you want to have these accent points in there to go, oh man, that looks awesome.
Yeah.
Especially lit up.
Yeah. And are you mostly finding that your clients come to you with plans, or are you guys doing most of the landscape designing that way?
So there's a big, line as far as, being a landscape architect that you go to school and get a degree on, and being a landscape, quote unquote designer. A lot of our jobs have an LA on them.
Got it.
That we work with. I mean, we work with the majority of LAs in town. Like we said, we've been around a long time. We know the older ones that are getting out of the business. And that's the thing, there's less and less LAs out there that are doing the high-end kind of residential work.
Gotcha.
That we've been seeing. So, in a renovation where you don't have to meet code, where you don't have to have all these inspections, it's cheaper. And if you have a company like us that, have been around, we know the plant material in each area that will do best, we can give you options. Going that route is probably more favorable, but having an LA, having that, that expert that has studied everything, they do all, they can do the drainage plans, the hardscape plans.
Yeah.
I mean, they do it all for the outside.
Kind of a combo of designer and architect
and
engineers.
Yeah. The ones we deal with are very good at what they do.
Gotcha. Yeah. And what are some of the trends that you're seeing nowadays? Are you seeing new styles or movements, more emphasis on hardscape, or where's the landscape industry going?
Yeah, I mean, in the recent years, like we've talked about earlier, everyone's out in their backyard. Everyone's enjoying, the Florida weather for the most part when it's not 100 degrees out.
Yep.
But for the majority of the year, you're out there, you're playing with the dogs or the kids in the back. You want to have a nice space to be. So these outdoor areas, the cabanas, the big pools, the water features, the fire features, now the landscape lighting, all of that is playing a big part. The technology is coming into landscaping more than it ever has in the past.
Yeah, and I know one thing I'm seeing more and more. I'm doing more and more at my house is lighting. Light. I mean, I'm seeing ads all over the place with exterior lighting for homes where it seems like people are getting really clever with directions. What are you guys seeing on the low voltage side?
Oh, it's awesome. I mean, we've been in the low voltage side for a long time, but the technology, like I said, is just getting better and better and better. We use a certain number of products that normally carry lifetime warranties on them.
Oh, really? Huh.
Yeah, they're very, very higher end products that we use. The cost is there, but the reliability and the fact that it goes out, Garrett, get me a new one, no problem.
Yep.
So there are definitely trends with that. We actually just stepped out of a couple-hour meeting the other day with one of our suppliers, and the colorscaping or the color
with
aspect.
Where they're like, where I run smart bulbs in my house, so you can change. Is that what you're talking about? Where you can change all the colors and.
Yep. So basically, the new systems now, each light is completely customizable from the lumen output to the color of the white light from 2700 to 6500.
Yeah, and that's how white or warm it is.
Yes, correct. Gotcha. So normally the overall in Winter Park or surrounding areas is a warm light. It's a 2700 to 3000 K bulb, or not bulb because they're LED now.
Yep.
The whiter you get, the more contemporary and kind of off-putting it gets.
Yep.
But the option's there.
Yep.
And you can use now. The other nice part about low voltage lighting is you can light up accents on the house. It's not just landscaping. You can light up features on the house that you want to show off, or you have stonework or something like that there. That is nice. So having that ability to soften and go to that bright white, as well as all the colors. So like I was telling you last night, you got these awesome features. You have events. You have an events button that you set up in advance.
Yep.
And then you have calendar events that you have 4th of July, Christmas, all that supersede the normal light output in a given night. So on Christmas night, or if you want it to light up from December 15th to December 31st, all Christmas colors,
easy,
it's automatic.
Just on your phone. Where even for the 4th of July, I was feeling extra patriotic where my house, like you said, I have some stonework on the corners. I have uplighting, and it's not even on the landscape, but it's amazing what a difference that lighting alone does. So for the 4th, I tried to do it because they're not smart bulbs. I got tinted film.
Yep.
Tried to just put it over so it's red, center one's white and blue, and it didn't work that well.
Yep. It's how the old school systems used to be, and
just
you have to
filters.
Yep. And now it's all LED, thank goodness. So first of all, you're not drawing as much power from your home and all that.
Yep.
Secondly, it doesn't get near as hot as the halogen bulbs used to get. I mean, they used to be burning.
Yeah, I remember at my parents' house when it would rain, you would see the steam coming off.
I mean, we've had mulch get into some of the old halogen bulbs and almost catch on fire. That's how hot they've gotten in the past. Yeah. So the LEDs have done wonders for the outdoor lighting world, and even indoor lighting. I mean, just LED in general, and the customization and the ability to do what you want with them.
Yeah. And so let's see. I sold you your house, your brother his house, and your wife's sister her house.
Yep.
I still haven't seen all the landscaping that you've done at your property. We need to do that ASAP. We've been
come on over.
Far too busy.
I know.
But were you saying that you're setting up a lighting system at your house?
Yeah. So we have the supplier we normally use. We had that meeting, and I go, I'd love to test this, test
Yeah,
it,
I
to,
I have a
to
house.
send it to my
Yeah,
clients
let me
and
just
try and
make
sell
sure
it.
it works great.
Exactly. Learn the app, stuff
Yeah,
like that. They're like, yeah, no big deal.
yeah,
So
quality control.
yeah.
Yeah,
So, it's, same with my father's house. So we're in the process of getting all that ordered. There are some things like when you get into the bigger transformers that are basically the brains of all the lights, when you get into the higher wattage, they're having trouble with all the color stuff now is heat soaking. So they're
gotcha,
working on the bigger transformers, but the stuff they have now can easily run a system.
gotcha.
So, yeah.
Where and I know we going back to design, which makes sense because it's such a design-based industry. I was thinking earlier this week, just driving around, where I was wondering when I think of real estate, I go, there's all these different styles to homes, contemporary, traditional or mid-century modern, colonial. And I driving around town in Winter Park, where landscaping is crazy, it's not all the same style. I see quite a bit of variety. I don't know if there's actual terms for these different styles, but how do you describe whether the landscaping is more 90-degree angled and blocked out versus flowy, and how does the terminology work with styles?
So through my speakings with LAs and all that, one of their first questions they ask the potential client is, okay, so how do you want the overall feel of your property to be?
Gotcha.
Do you want it to be fluid and nice
Organic.
curves, exactly, more natural, or do you want it to be more linear?
Yep.
And you base the landscaping off of that. Now, I'm not to say that you can't incorporate both.
Yeah.
I
more
have
tropical, more serious.
Yeah, exactly. So, there's two different aspects to that, but there's also, many variations in between. So it's a broad spectrum.
Yeah. And working backwards, that's so interesting. Working backwards when it comes to landscaping from the feeling, for some reason, that makes a ton of sense. Where are you looking for something almost sterile and clean
Correct.
and very serious, or do you want that tropical
Correct.
paradise or
Correct. English garden type?
Yeah, yeah. Do you want depth, and then you can cite different country styles. Going.
Oh, absolutely.
We have homes in town that you can tell they went with that Zen, almost Japanese garden style.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the cool part about living where we are, is you have that ability. Like Florida, we have the top of Florida. I mean, it's such a long state. The top of Florida, that hardiness zone is 8A.
Yeah.
You go down to the Keys, Key West, and it's 11A.
Yeah.
Or 11B, I forgot.
And that's quite a bit of variation in one state
huge.
to have.
I mean, it's more variation, I think, than any other state that is out there. And Orlando, where we're at, falls in between 9A and B.
Yeah.
So.
And what's the term when you're referring to these areas? Climate zones?
It's the hardiness zone.
Got it.
So it's a plant hardiness zone. So, there's certain types of plant material, and you see this a lot in Winter Park, is the tropical look.
Yep.
You got the Calusia that you see, the massive hedges down like Miami that you see, the big royal palms, stuff like that. But they're more susceptible to freezes.
Got it.
Now, we don't get freezes like we used to.
Often, but
yeah,
we do.
But we get a snap every once in a while. And if it's a young plant and it's not mature, or it's a tree or something like that, it can go south. And when it's a royal palm and it's a $7,000, $8,000, $10,000 tree,
and you're not climbing up there and covering it for the frost.
No.
Yeah.
So it used to be a bigger gamble than what it is today. There's been enough time to go, okay, we can incorporate more tropical into our feels than what we used to feel comfortable with, I believe. But now, you can start bringing in those elements to kind of, make it more unique than it used to.
Yeah. And kind of going back to the styles and designs, where in the landscaping world, when I think, or in the real estate world, when I think of homes that I see around town, often I recognize, without knowing anything, I can tell you that's a Reiki Silliman build, that looks like, a Clayton build, or David Weekley, Pulsey, what have you. Where is it? Do you have that in the landscaping world where you can kind of recognize who?
Absolutely.
Really?
I drive around town all the time. I know the company that probably did it. I know the LA that did it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so everyone has their own style.
Yeah.
And whether it's subconscious or what, their clientele is mostly made up of, they have their own style in the way they do things. Just like you were saying, how houses are built now. And that it's
those
cool.
little touches where I go, it must be that builder because they use that color.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
And what are some of the, like with your guys' company, what do you think some of your almost signatures are where someone would know, oh, that was Landscape Resources?
Well, the big lizard.
Well, your guys'
home.
marketing. So anyone who has spent any of the last 20 years in Winter Park, you'll all know those landscaping trucks that have a massive lizard on the side. If you know what I'm talking about, that's Landscape Resources.
Yep.
And even your race car has the lizard on it.
Yeah, the whole car's a lizard, basically.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's something that my dad thought of when he actually sat us all down at the dinner table one night before he kind of started the company. He's like, so what's our mascot going to be? What's the thing that everyone's going to look at us and go, oh, that's Landscape Resources.
Yeah.
And we all kind of came up with a lizard. I don't know why.
It makes sense in Florida, though.
Yeah.
I mean, where it's funny when I have, buyers coming in from out of state looking around, one of the things they most frequently cite is the lizards. Apparently we have just a ton of them.
We have a lot.
The lizards and the big lizards, the gators.
So it's an appropriate mascot.
I know. They always have questions.
And speaking of that, my dad's last company was called Gator Landscaping.
Oh, no
and
kidding.
his mascot was a gator.
We're Florida men through and through.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, keep an eye out for part 2 where we really get into the consumer advice and why landscaping is so important with real estate.